And then from that, I went to Piercing Pagoda, and I was the GM.
Okay.
And this woman came up to buy a pair of gold hoop earrings one time. And this would have been January 2008. So I left organized Satanism in 1999. And so now it's 2008. I've been out of the game for a long time. I still do magic every night, but I don't belong to a coven anymore.
Uh-huh.
And so this woman comes up, tells me what she's needing. I present her with the perfect pair. And she goes, "These are great, but, actually I'm shopping with my daughter. When I'm done, I'll come back and I'll buy them." Now, I've been a manager for a while and of retail stores for a while. And I know that when a woman says that, she means, I'm going to go find it cheaper someplace else. But she had an honest face. I knew she'd be back. And 3 hours later, she comes back. We do the transaction. I give her the jewelry. She gives me the money. It made my day financially. So I was happy. And I give her the receipt. And I say, if you call this 800 number on this receipt and take a survey, you might win $1,000. And she goes, "That's great. I've got something for you too." And she reaches in her purse, and I'm thinking, she's going to pull out a Jack Chick pamphlet, tell me that I'm sinning, and you drop to my knees and beg for forgiveness and blah, blah, blah. All this stuff I can't do because I sold my soul to the devil when I was 13. And instead, she pulls out this cheap gold-colored piece of tin. Usually people don't hand me gold. I hand them gold. And then she says the weirdest thing I've ever heard. Now, remember that I partied with rock stars. You give somebody that can write poetry and songs, unlimited alcohol and drugs, and they will say some twisted stuff. And I tell people, they hear my conferences, and I say, if you doubt that statement, when you leave here, turn your radio station to a top 40 station. Just listen to whatever song plays. Well, you've got some girl singing, "I kissed a girl and I liked it." What the garbage is that? or Kid Rock. It's like sometimes your breakout song is the best song you ever have. You might have other number one songs, but they'll be number one for a couple of weeks. Your breakout song sometimes goes to number one. It's the number one song of the year. It's the number one video of the year. Kid Rock had that with Bow to Ba. This is the song that made him a quote-unquote rock god. But the lyrics of this song are bow to ba, to dang, diggy diggy, up jumps the boogie. And you're like, it took you 24 years to put that out. And then you came out with it, and this was the best song you ever released. And it shows motorcycles jumping over trailers. And just this large black woman with blonde hair playing drums. And this white boy, skinny white boy dressed like a pimp, jumping around the stage. But you come to realize also that of all the songs that were out that year, his song was the number one song of the year and the number one video of the year. That meant his song with those crazy lyrics were better than all the other songs that came out that year.
Yeah, it's depressing.
It is. It is. And, and then, no matter what you listen to, every song either is about something nonsensical. And for an example, do you remember the song Barracuda by Heart?
I think so, yeah.
They rock with the guitars. It's almost like a precursor to a heavy metal show with girls. And they're rocking this song. And, and in the chorus, everybody recognizes the, ooh, Barracuda, But if you read the lyrics, it's the dumbest song ever written. It's like somebody is like pursuing a dolphin that they want to have sex with, and they can't get the dolphin, so something else happens, and then, ooh, Barracuda. It's like, what?
If that's not proof that these people have sold their soul to the devil to get fame, then I don't know what is,
Or all their songs are about promiscuity, and they're blatant promiscuity. You were with a guy, you gave him your heart, which is a reference to giving him your virginity.
Yeah.
And, you know, the very next day he gave it away. It's like, really? And it's like every song, every single song. Now, about 12 years ago or so, I did a song. I did a conference at the cathedral in the Diocese of Venice, Florida. The bishop invited me to come speak to the youth. And I did. And there was like more than 1,000 people there. But it was youth and their parents. And when I was done with my talk, a bunch of hands went up. And this woman said, "Not Taylor Swift. She's innocent and pure." And I said, Taylor Swift is going to follow the same route as all the other female superstars. She's going to come out and be young and innocent and cute and sweet for a while. And then the switch is going to get flipped and she's going to become trashy, talk about how much she's having sex. Every song is going to be a love song. And in it, she gave everything away to this boy and he betrayed her. And eventually her true self is going to be known. You know, and all these people are like murmuring, like, no, Taylor Swift. And I said, okay, this is what I want. This is the deal I want to make with you. Let's say 12 years from now, 15 years from now, you're going to be able to see how bad she is and that you can't be taking your kids to her shows. And at that time, everybody that sees that I was right, I would like each one of you to send me $1,000. Because there's 1,000 of you here, and if all of you send me $1,000, I'll be a millionaire, and I'll know that I was right. And they're like, "That's never going to happen." I said, "You're never going to send me the money, or you don't think she's going to go off the rails?"
And that's where she is. You know, that's it.
That's exactly where she is.
She's.
There was an article on LifeSite News. There was an interview with Father Rehel, who's the exorcist for Nashville, Tennessee, I think. And he said that no parent in good conscience can take their child to a Taylor Swift show because she does magic on stage, and that you know that her show is attracting a lot of demons because of the sin that's happening on the stage. Yeah. And that if your child goes there and they're not in a state of grace, they're going to end up with demonic attachment. And then when they bring that home, depending on what your family's involved in, somebody could end up getting possessed.
Yeah.
You know, and Taylor Swift isn't the only one. There's other ones that they say the same thing about. You know, there's a black artist, and I don't know what genre of music it is, but he called upon demons to possess one of his fans on stage. And the person had a convulsion and hit the ground.
Gosh.
I think they had to be rushed to the hospital. And that's like, you know, you hear about that stuff regularly, and yet people are like, you know, blind to that. Like, oh, I've never heard of that. That's new and different. Yeah. I think they're making up stories. It's like, really, you can search the news. How did I make that up?
I know, and now they're coming out more and more with these types of news things, you know, so where you can actually see it, you can actually find it. It's not
right
as maybe before.
No, I mean, it used to be. I had this favorite quote from my character Verbal Kent in the movie The Usual Suspects, where he said the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist. Well, now it's the opposite. Now he's like, ta-da, here I am. You know, and it's like he's happy to be seen.
Yeah.
You know, when I was telling people way back in the day that my satanic coven in the 1980s had 1.1 million members. That was worldwide. And people would come back with, there's no way a satanic coven could be that big. You know, maybe 10,000 members, but, you know, over 1 million? No, there's no way. Well, 3 years ago, the Satanic Temple had SatanCon in Arizona. And he announced to the world then that the Satanic Temple has 300,000 members worldwide. It's like, 300,000. That seems like a lot more than the 10,000 that there could possibly be.
Yeah.
And then the next year, they had SatanCon in Boston. And at that time, he said that Satanic Temple has 700,000 members around the world. They more than doubled in 1 year. Now, last year, they didn't have SatanCon. They said they were financing the Democratic reelection. And I don't know if they're going to have it this year or not. I would love to go and sell my products, sell my merch at their event, because they agree with my point of view. They don't agree that it's, I'm Catholic, and they don't agree with any of that, I'm sure. But the name of my book is Abortion is a Satanic Sacrifice, and they agree with that.
I wanted to get into some of the one of the original reasons why I thought of interviewing you as a friend of mine was, and I asked this question to you just on the phone.
Yes.
He gave me a prayer that was, it was like a prayer of protection against astral projection, and he was just briefly talking about how that's one of the main things that people that are satanic or witches or these different things use to kind of get into Catholic homes to affect people. And I had heard, I've heard of it. I've heard it described in a little bit of detail, but maybe tell me a little bit about that. What is that? Is that something that's used a lot? What should people know about that?
Astral projection is a funny thing because it works. You can really do it, but the people that don't believe in it will vehemently oppose anything that you say about it because they don't think it's possible. It's like the speed limit sign that says don't go over 1,000 miles an hour. We don't have that sign because you can't go over 1,000. They're like, don't talk to me about astral projection. That's not real. And it's like, well, by you not recognizing that it's real, you're opening yourself up for satanic attack that you don't believe is happening. It's like when I was Baptist, we were taught that Satan was afraid of the Baptist church and that Jesus defeated Satan on the cross 2,000 years ago, so he's no threat to us now. So if you believe those things, you can be attacked by Satan 24 hours a day and just think you're having a string of bad luck because you don't believe that's Satan attacking you. You don't believe that astral projection is real. So when things are going wrong in your home, it's just the way it is. My life sucks today. Astral projection is a person finds a quiet place in their house. They close their eyes. Sometimes they listen to new agey type music, help them relax. Kind of goes into the trance, and then you move your soul out of your body and move it to somebody else's house. You can walk in, you can watch everything that they do in that house. So if the man and wife are engaged in marital relations, they're watching you do it. If the kids are involved in stuff they shouldn't be, or you can influence them to do things they normally wouldn't do. The danger of you doing that, though, is that if your body is now a shell because there's no soul in it, a demon can come and get in your body and possess you. When you try and go back into your body, sometimes they don't have to let you in.
And the person can die?
No, the demon keeps the body alive. The soul is now just kind of wishing it hadn't done that. Yeah. Sometimes they can get back in the body, and now they have to share it with a demon, and now they're possessed.
Is this a common practice that they use to kind of like attack Catholic or Christian homes or churches or things like that?
Yeah, they use this to attack a lot of people. And a lot of people that can sense that something is there, something is wrong, or somebody is in their house but they can't see anybody, are just kind of viewed as being crazy. And they're not crazy. It's they have somebody that has astral projected into their house, and could be influencing their kids to do bad behavior or do bad things. They can whisper to the children and say dirty things and influence them. And they think that it's their own mind coming up with it.
Yeah.
If they're not strong in their faith, then they may think that, oh, I have to do this. My brain is telling me and I can't make it change its mind.
Yeah.
And it's not even your brain, it's somebody outside of you telling you. They might be influencing all your dreams at night. You're having sexual dreams and you've never had those before. And you don't know why. And you go tell your priest, and he tells you, whatever, think holy thoughts, pray to the Blessed Mother more, pray rosaries.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter what you're doing. You need to get into a state of grace. It is the main problem. And therein lies the problem with Protestants. They only have one way to get in a state of grace. And then once they sin, because the only way a Protestant can get into a state of grace is to be baptized. And all their sins go away. And then the next time they sin, they can't get into a state of grace. So now they're kind of stuck.
Yeah.
And it's like I tell people when a Satanist puts a curse on you, people think, well, there's a skull involved and 3 different candles and a knife and parchment and a quill and it's like, and so there's blood and there's wolf's bane, and it's like, no. Don't think of all that. A basic curse is you're praying to Satan to attach a demon to somebody. Now, the most common curses are a single curse, a tri-curse, and a hex. The single curse, I send a demon to attach to you so I can curse you. But you're in a state of grace, so the demon leaves. No big deal. Let's say, though, somebody hired you to put a tri-curse on you. Demon comes to you today at noon. Oh, you're in a state of grace, so he leaves. But he comes back tomorrow at 4 p.m. But you're still in a state of grace, so he leaves. And he comes back in 30 days at midnight, but you're still in a state of grace, so he leaves. And that was the 3 times, and the curse didn't stick. But let's say the person that hires me really hates you bad, and they're rich, and they pay my coven $10 million to put a curse on you, and they want it done with a hex. Not a problem. I do my hex. I do my abortion. I finish out my hex. The demon goes to you and goes, oh, you're in a state of grace? No problem. I'll wait. So he just hangs around you. He talks to your guardian angel. And he sits around and he just waits. And let's say he waits for 90 days. You're still in a state of grace. But day 91, somebody pisses you off on the highway and you cuss them out, flip them off, and use every dirty word you know. But in that, you took the Lord's name in vain. Suddenly, you're not in a state of grace. And the demon attaches to you because he's been with you this whole 90 days, waiting for you to sin. And now you have. And now he's attached to you. And now, with this type of curse, you're going to need a deliverance unless he stays with you longer than normal and the deliverance hasn't worked, and then you might need an exorcism.
Oh.
And this could have been avoided had you stayed in a state of grace the whole time.
I think it's obviously important for people not just to know then the importance of staying in that state of grace, but also what really is it that we're up against and the details of it. Because sometimes people just think, well, I'm just fighting the devil. And they have like a very broad kind of like just believing there's just God, like the Protestants, instead of knowing, look, there's also all these types of angels. There's also all these saints. It's a
But
complicated, you know.
we have 9 choirs of angels, and angels fell from all 9 choirs. So, think about how many angels could there possibly be? Well, I've heard that there was 50 billion people from Adam and Eve till now. So if that's true, and 1/3 of the angelic fell, then that would mean there's at least 17 billion demons. Padre Pio said that there's so many, if you could see with spiritual eyes, there's enough demons to blot out the sun. That's kind of scary.
Yeah, but I think we need to kind of understand that, so that we're aware of what's really out there. So with, for instance, like with the astral projection, the main way of being protected is being in a state of grace. Are there other prayers people should be aware of, other things that people should do or have in their houses?
Um, we have all the sacraments and the sacramentals in our church. Um, people should get holy water, which is like an easy thing to get, but the best holy water is Epiphany water. And you don't have to get it just at the Feast of Epiphany. Epiphany water can be made year round. Any priest can do it that's willing to do it.
Can
You
you
might have
can you explain why? What's the difference kind of from your perspective?
Epiphany is, in some places, is a bigger deal than Christmas. Because the Feast of Epiphany is when the Magi found Jesus. So it was, Jesus was born was a huge deal, but the Jews didn't recognize their Messiah. When the Magi discovered Jesus, this was the pagans discovering God. This was a bigger deal because he was rejected by the Jews ultimately his entire life. But especially as an infant, they didn't know he was even born. And the Magi knew it. The pagans knew. They saw the signs in the sky and recognized this is God. So the Feast of Epiphany, they exercise salt, and which is something usually an exorcist does, but sometimes a regular priest can do it. And they put exercise salt in with holy water, and the blessing takes about a half an hour. Whereas blessing holy water is like the sign of the cross and bless you in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. So the blessing is greater. And it's kind of like the difference in if you had a holy gun, just a regular pistol, but you could shoot demons with it. Well, you're shooting them with, say, the Judge, which takes a 45 Magnum slug or a shotgun shell, and you can shoot a demon with it. And that would be holy water. Epiphany water would be like you pull out a special gun and push a button, and an atomic bomb would drop on the demon.
If people knew this type of thing, like we would make holsters with Epiphany water holding things and just carry it around everywhere.
I have like 6 gallons of Epiphany water in my house, and I have spray bottles, and all my spray bottles have Epiphany water in them. And my kids have these in their rooms. They know you hear something in the room that shouldn't be there, spray it with this. This is like instant monster be gone spray.
Oh my God. That's just so cool.
You hear a noise, you smell something, you smell poop in the house, and you know that nobody's going to the bathroom right now. That's a demon. That's a demon smell. Spray this around. Suddenly, that smell is gone. I did an interview on, I think it was the Drew Mariani show, like 12 years ago, maybe a little longer. And this woman was telling me that she called me up to say that she had flies in her house in an internal room where her prayer closet is. And she has an altar in there and all these pictures. And sometimes it'll just be filled with flies. And how do they get in there? There's not a vent, there's not a window. It's an internal room. What are these? And I said, Satan is the Lord of the flies. I said, say a St. Michael prayer and see what happens. And she goes, well, hold on. The demons are in the room right, the flies are in the room right now. And she goes, I'm going to put you on hold. Hold on. So she puts me on hold and she prays the prayer. And she gets back on the phone and she says, you're not going to believe this. She goes, there was like 50 flies in here. I just prayed the St. Michael prayer. And before it was over, it was like wisps of smoke. And they were all gone. And she was like, I never thought to do that. She goes, I just thought there were flies. I would go get a fly swatter or fly spray and just spray it around, try and get rid of them that way. But she goes, this is the best method ever.
Yeah.
I didn't know this would work. So I've got a funny story for you that kind of explains Protestants versus Catholics in a comical way that's also kind of scary. I went to an exorcism. It would have been around, I started going, helping out a priest named Monsignor LaFemina. He was the exorcist for Venice, Diocese of Venice, Florida. And if I was on tour, then I was on tour. But if I wasn't on tour, I would come and help him out on his exorcisms. Mm-hmm. And he would do at least one a month. And so it was around, it was like 2012 or 13. And usually we come into the room, there'll be about 15 people in there. Most everybody prays during the exorcism, but if the person starts acting out, the men will come over and hold the person down, so they don't hurt anybody or themselves. Mm-hmm. And when Monsignor comes into the room, he says, all right, we're about to get started. Who needs confession? And some people raise their hands and they leave the room with a couple of priests. Then Monsignor goes back through the room and asks everybody by name if they need confession. Zachary, do you need confession? No, Father. Bob, do you need confession? No, Father. Larry, do you need confession? No, Father. And he goes all the way around the room, and there's this guy in the room that's wearing a suit. I mean, like a three-piece suit. Like, nobody I see at Mass ever is dressed this good. Mm-hmm. And he looks at that guy, and he calls him by name. Do you need confession? No, I confess directly to God. And I thought, that's different. None of us would ever say that. But he keeps going. He lists everybody else. Everybody says no. And one guy says yes. I didn't realize that's what was happening before. So he left the room and he gets confession. So then both the priests come back. Everybody's back. And he starts a Latin Mass. And he does the Latin Mass. Everybody's in a state of grace. So everybody gets the Eucharist, including the guy in the suit. Everybody's got the Eucharist. And as soon as the Mass is ended, the exorcism starts. When he starts it, he starts the exorcism off by calling Satan before the tribunal of God. And he says, if you call Satan before the tribunal of God, he has to show up. So Satan shows up, and there's a conversation between him and the exorcist, where the exorcist finds out by what right do you have to possess this person. And so Satan says what rights he has. Then he has the person rebuke those things. And then Satan leaves, and we start with the weakest demon first. Sometimes, with that case, we had an evil spirit. So we started with an evil spirit, cast him out almost immediately, and then we got a demon. And the demon comes in, his head snaps to the right, and then snaps to the left, and he starts smiling and laughing. And he says, you. And he's looking at the guy dressed in the suit. And he says, you got baptized when you were 12, and you've never gone to confession since then. Your following sins are these. Hey, 300 sins in a row.
Wow.
He said words that I didn't even know what they meant. Like, these are sins, apparently, but I don't even know what they are. And then he takes a breath.
With all your experience, you would think you would know, you know?
Right. And he takes a breath, and then another 300 sins. So now this guy's guilty of 600 sins. And then yesterday, he had the sin of pride. Today, he had the sin of pride, and he took the Eucharist and wasn't worthy. He wasn't worthy to take the Eucharist. And he's like, you have 600 plus mortal sins. Let me give you some more. And he starts to say more. And Father has a pitcher of Epiphany water, and he douses the demon in the entire pitcher. And then this guy screams, and the scream is like 3 minutes. Like, it would take an opera star to be able to do this scream. And when he's done screaming, the Monsignor yells, "Silence! You will only speak to me, and only when spoken to." And that demon was gone, and then it was the next however many demons we worked on. And we did this for about 6 hours. And then we took a break. And it was Monsignor and the 2 priests, and he asked me to come. So there was 4 of us that walked into another room. And then he had everybody here, just wait here, take a break, just relax. You can take a break, but you can't leave the room. And we go into this other room, and I was like, who's the guy that goes directly to God for confession? And he said, he's a Baptist preacher. And he's been asking me for a long time to attend one of the exorcisms because he wants to see what's the difference between our exorcisms and their exorcisms. And I told him, well, ours work, and we have the authority to do them, and you don't have the authority to do them. You can do a deliverance. And he's been trying to talk the Baptist preacher into doing a real confession. And he says, no, I confess directly to God. So he thought, I'm going to have him come to the exorcism and see if a demon knows all of his sins. Because the stain of our sin goes on our soul. And demons know what it is. Yeah, they can see it. Angels and demons can see it. So they know if we're in a state of grace or if we're in a state of mortal sin.
Yeah.
So the demon could see all of his sins that he committed since he was 12 years old.
I mean, just that is a mind-blowing reality for us to think, because we think that those things are just so private, but it's like if we could see as they could, that it's like out there, like on spiritual social media, they could see all of it.
Right. Like, it's really there. The stain of sin is on your soul. And there's a priest named, I think it's Monsignor Esef.
Yeah.
He's getting up there now. He's like 96 years old.
Yeah.
But I hear he can read souls. He could tell you, it's like, if you think you've confessed everything, go see Monsignor Esef.
Yeah.
Because he can read your soul and tell you, no, you need to confess these things.
Yeah. I've met him before, and he's a pretty amazing priest. Gosh,
I heard another priest met him recently, and was blown away that he could read his soul and knew what was there.
Yeah. So note to self: find Monsignor S. I have so many questions. This would be maybe to help people. For people, like I have this YouTube channel. I focus a lot on the souls in purgatory. For people that have ministries, for other people that have YouTube channels, how are they being attacked and blocked? What should people be aware of and do? And most people would know, okay, they would be in the state of grace. What are maybe other things that you would think, hey, do these things, be aware that this is going to happen, don't be naive?
I think you have to be aware that there are people that, don't think that everybody's good. Everybody's nice. Nobody's really out to hurt you, because there are people that are out to hurt you, and there are witches that want to curse you, and there are bad people that do bad things, and some of those bad things are witchcraft or Satanism. You know, Lucian Greaves from the Satanic Temple admitted that they had 700,000 members worldwide. Oh, and this is the other kicker: 90% of them are trans.
Yeah.
Now, where I was blown away by that statement is that means there's 630,000 trans people in the world.
Gosh.
Who would have thought that many people were mentally ill?
And then with these things, it's some of the things that you were saying that the annoying part isn't just being in a state of grace in a given moment, but that they're waiting for you. So you have to, if something happens, go to confession quickly and be aware of, like, they're waiting for that open door.
I was at a abortion mill with a group of friends. This was a few years ago, and it was during the TFP were having an event where they had a big banner out there, and it was marriages between one man and one woman. And so I was out there with that group, and they had that banner up, and there were people going by, and some people were blowing their horn in support, and some people were blowing their horn against. We had people flipping us off and stuff like that. That's fine. Free country, say what you want. And this woman came out of the abortion mill and she works there. And she was sitting in one spot in her car, staring at a group of us, mouthing something. And somebody said, "This is what I'm seeing happen." I said, "Oh, she's putting a spell on all of us. She's cursing us." And they said, "What do you think the curse is?" I said, "Is she staying in one spot for a long time?" She goes, "Yeah." I said, "It's a line of sight curse. She has to stay within seeing us to make the curse work." And she's like, "Okay, and then what's the deal on the curse?" I said, "If you're in a state of grace, nothing will happen." I said, "I'm in a state of grace." I said, "Most of you went to confession this morning, so most of you won't be affected. Whoever's not in a state of grace is going to have a visitor tonight. Like a demon's going to show up. As soon as you go to confession, curse is broken. It's the only curse that's done like that. So if somebody in this crew is not in a state of grace, they're going to have a demonic visitor tonight." And one of my friends was there with some of her kids. And she said, "I think one of my kids is not in a state of grace." I said, "Well, you'll find out tonight, because she's going to get the crap scared out of her." And so that night, a demon appeared in that girl's room. She woke up screaming, and she could see the demon right there. And her sister was also in the room. Her sister was in a state of grace, but she could see the demon as well. And it was standing next to her sister's bed. And they started praying rosaries really loud, and the demon stayed there. He just smiled and sat on the floor and just sat there, wouldn't leave her bed. And the parents ran into the room, and so they're spraying epiphany water all over the room. And so the demon would get out of the way of the epiphany spray, but then stand in a different part of the room. So they would spray over there, and the demon would jump on the bed, and you could see the bed bow down, under the weight of the demon. And they're like, "Honey, we're going to have to spray you too." She goes, "I don't care. Spray me. Just get rid of it." So they're spraying all around the room, and the demon is jumping from the floor up to the ceiling and all around the room. And I don't know if they ever got rid of it in their house, but the next day she went to confession. And she said she'd never been that scared in her life. And she thought, when I said that, if you're in a state of grace, you'll be fine. If you're not in a state of grace, you'll have demonic attachment. A demon come visit you. She thought I was full of rubbish. I didn't know what I was talking about. That wasn't really going to happen.
you know, or I can imagine even like not having nearly the idea of what it would be like, oh, it'll be a little thing, you know?
Right. It might be cute. I might like it. I
Yeah.
might keep it.
Yeah.
And then found out it wasn't any of those things.
Gosh, that's wild.
I have had a lot of people that I've recommended them do something. And I have 3 kids now. And about a year ago, one of them is very fascinated with dark stuff. And I told her, you know, being attracted to dark stuff is not safe. You know, you're going to have a dark visitor sometime. You know, and she didn't believe me. So the thing that I recommend to people is to pray a 90-day novena to Mary Undoer of Knots and ask her to show the person I'm praying for the reality of what they're doing. So like if they're a fan of Harry Potter and they can't get enough of Harry Potter, show them that those are demons that are helping in that magic.
Yeah.
And show them a demon. Let them see. Or if they're involved in something New Age, well, you know, New Age is satanic. They just take out the bad news. You know, it's like nobody goes to hell. Everybody goes to heaven. There's no demons. There's just angels. And angels are there to help you. And just call your angel by his name. Make up a name, and that's his name. And, you know, and then you'll have good luck the rest of your life. And it's like, that's not how life works. You know, and all this other stuff that you say doesn't exist, does exist. But pray to Mary to reveal the demons to this person. And it happens. My daughter woke us up. She was sobbing that she had woken up. Something was in her room. It was dark. It had red eyes, and it touched her. And she was scared to death for like the next few weeks.
I can imagine.
This was going to happen again. You know, she took a bunch of holy stuff from the house and put it in her room. Like, I have a crown of thorns, and it was given to me by a place that hosted me for an interview, and it was from New Orleans, and it was blessed by a priest, and it looks like the actual crown of thorns. And so she took that, put it in her room. I have rosaries on like every wall,
Yeah.
and crucifixes on every wall. And she took some of my rosaries and my crucifixes and put them up in her room. I think she's got my blessed Our Lady of Guadalupe picture.
Yeah.
That I got. You know, it's a second-class relic. You know, she's got that. And, you know, it's like she's talking a lot of Catholicism and Christianity for the last year.
Wow.
You know, like she's on board.
How old is she now?
16.
Wow.
And she's witnessing to her friends in school. Some of them don't believe in God. You know, and she's telling them, I'm telling you, this stuff is real. You know, you know, Jesus can be your friend. You know, and you can have salvation. You can go to heaven. And, you know, and if you don't, this is what can happen to you. This is where you can go.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I'm so proud of her now.
Kind of.
She was embracing the dark side before.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's an amazing lesson to learn, because sometimes those curiosities will seem not so dark, you know.
Right.
But
right.
like, so maybe you can think of it as like, it's just not a full open door, but a cracked one. But if there's an opening, you know, it can still, obviously, like, it can still get in.
You know, what people don't understand is that a lot of times you open a door and you can't close it. You know, I had a cousin that was Baptist, and he believed that if you're a true Christian, you can't be possessed. And I said, wow, I've never met anybody so wrong. You want to say something else that's asinine too? Or are you going to limit yourself to that? And he's like, what do you mean? And I said, well, that's just asinine. I said, anybody can get possessed. All you got to do is open the wrong door. He goes, give me an example. What would be an example of something I could do? I am a believer in Jesus Christ. I believe Jesus died for me and resurrected again. And, you know, and I'm a child of him. What can I do to not be in a state of grace? I said, well, you haven't been in a state of grace since after your baptism. I said, don't you sin? He goes, well, of course I sin. Everybody sins. I said, you're not in a state of grace. He goes, I pray to God to forgive my sins. I said, okay. And you know you're forgiven how? So you just assume you're forgiven? He goes, well, yeah. I said, right, but you don't have somebody saying you're forgiven of these and all your sins. So how do you know? What do you do for penance? What's penance? I said, that's what you do after you give your confession and you get in a state of grace and you give in a penance. And he goes, I've never done a penance. I said, and therefore you are not forgiven.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, he goes, okay, let's say you're in a Borders bookstore. He goes, okay. I said, now you're already not in a state of grace. So you're sinning and demons are watching you because you're sinning. That your sin attracts them. They read your sin on your soul. So they're watching everything you're doing. And you pick up a book because it's got a strange picture on it. You're not sure what it is. It catches your attention. You pick it up, you turn it over, and you read it. It turns out it's not a book. It's a tarot deck in a fancy box. You read the box, and you put it down. It's not something you're interested in. But you picked it up, so now you have demonic attachments. And it goes home with you. And it causes you and your wife to fight tonight. And every night. For months. And now you're both thinking about getting a divorce. But you don't really have a real reason to get a divorce. You're just fighting all the time. And if you get the divorce, now that's a sin. Because you didn't have a legitimate reason. And you have all the other sins on top of that. And you've got this demonic attachment that has now caused you to get divorced. So now you have more demons. All it takes is one major slip up on your part, and you're going to get possessed from this. He goes, what would that be? I said, well, let's say that your wife leaves you. But let's say that when you guys were together before you were fighting, you were having sex on a regular basis. And you miss that. So you either go out and get a prostitute, which is another mortal sin, or you decide it would be less embarrassing because you might get arrested if you pick up a prostitute. Why don't I just break out my phone and look at some porn and masturbate to that? And you do that. And that can lead to possession. One of the young men that I was at the exorcism of, when Satan came out to say what reasons he had to be able to possess this person, he had the right of possession through addiction to heavy metal music, porn, and masturbation. And those three things were the reason that Satan had the right to be there. Tempting them to sin is the job. When they sin, the demon dances with glee because now they see the stain of that sin is on that person's soul. And unless they go to confession, that person's going to die and go to hell. And then they'll get to tempt them and tease them and torture them for an eternity in hell.
Ask, do witches pretend to be Catholic in order to get close to you, and then they kind of embed themselves in the church or in your life, or to put things in your house or things like that? Is that something
generally not to attack the church, but they will attack you personally, and they will befriend you. They will not. I had a friend recently that told me that his wife got befriended by somebody, and she said that she seemed nice, and she seemed to talk the talk, and she wasn't really like religious, but she was spiritual. And that's a warning right there. When somebody says, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual, it's like, really? And so she said that this woman invited her over to the house, and she was there, and she saw this bowl, and the bowl seemed to have like blood and bones in it. And I said, oh, that's her Naganga. And he's like, it's her what? I said, Naganga. It's like a cauldron that has the bones of your enemies in it, sometimes their skull. And you make offerings to the devil with this. I said, so it's in some of the Spanish satanic covens.
Yeah.
And the bowl itself is called a Naganga. And, he's like, so what is she doing? And she also wears this thing around her neck, and she's always got it on. And he's like, what is that for? I said, it protects her from any prayers you do against her, but it also puts out a kind of a negative vibe to you as well. So it protects, in her mind, it protects her and curses you. I said, I wouldn't let her back in the house.
Yeah.
I said, anything she's given you, I would probably take it to a priest and have him bless it, remove any curses from it, and then I would destroy it. I said, the problem with keeping something that's had a curse removed from it is that demons will see it as, oh, that used to be cursed. Let me see what it is now. And they may go back to it and decide they want to curse it again, but you think it's safe because you already had it prayed over.
Speaking of that, we had an incident where, and I made a video about this. My daughters were having kind of these nightmares, and then there's a friend of mine that has kind of different gifts of discernment, and we took some pictures. Well, it got down to where it was these things that we had bought in Mexico, and his own discernment was like that person was somehow trying to make communication with the dead. You need to get rid of it and burn it. And then we said prayers for a couple of weeks. But maybe speak about that, about people being aware of like the things that they buy, that reality of maybe being aware of like, hey, if there's these things happening in the house, think about this. Maybe
There
talk
could
about
be. I was at, me and my ex-wife, where I was married to her at the time. We were on tour, and it was probably around 2013 or 14. And the only place to eat was a Denny's that was open 24 hours, and that was behind the hotel. So after we'd settled in, got everything, then we walked over to Denny's. And in the Denny's was this game. It was a claw game, so it was a pretty big machine, and it's filled with like really nice looking plushes. Like, I mean, these, if you went to the fair, this would cost you probably $10 to try and win one of these. They're big, they're very plush, very big, and very impressive that they be in a claw game that you can play for $1. And it said on the sign, $1 play till you win. And we didn't have any change on it, so we didn't have dollar bills, so we couldn't play. But we thought it was interesting because everything in there was like a teddy bear that was like 3 feet tall. There was a unicorn that was at least a foot tall, but about 3 feet wide. The place where you drop stuff is huge. So, and there were like toy buses and toy cars. They didn't look like they were made of plastic. They looked like they were made of metal. Mm-hmm. And footballs of favorite teams, there were plushes, but even though they were like regular size of a football. And so there's like, this thing is pretty big. So I'm guessing there's about 50 plushes in it, and a bunch of cars and trucks and buses and semis and fire trucks. And like I said, it all looks like they're made of metal. I mean, the cheapest you could buy one of these things at a regular store, it might be, if you got like a Hot Wheels, it'd be $1. Yeah. You went to the Dollar Tree, you could get it for $1. But, here you have a chance of winning anything. And it says play till you win. So, I mean, if you're not winning anything, the game's not ending for you. This guy comes in, covered in tattoos. I mean, arms, legs, face, neck. And he's also got plugs in his ears. And he's got a satanic t-shirt on. Like he's advertising the OTO, the Ordi Templi Orientis, and a coven that Aleister Crowley made famous. So he's wearing that, and he looks at the toys that are missing, and he makes a list, and he goes back out to his vehicle, comes back in with a box filled with toys, and he puts them all in there. And I'm like, how much money do you make on this? I mean, this seems like it's pretty popular. And he goes, oh, yeah, it's usually jam-packed full. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff missing. I'm probably missing about 40 things. And he opens up the cash drawer and pulls out money. And there was like, you got $55. He says they have 87 of these machines around 3 states. And he starts touring like every Saturday. He tries to go out and hit as many machines as he can. And he said, it's a lot of money. So some of the places, we open the machine and there'll be like $500 in it. And there's still toys in it, you know, and he's like, it's a good racket we got going. And I said, no, I know this stuff is really cheap because I used to work in an arcade. And you're paying like a few pennies for most of this stuff. He goes, yeah, that's how it is. He said, so like these big plushes even might cost me $0.25, but I doubt that. He said, maybe a dime at most. And then, you know, we get $1 for it.
Wow.
So I mean, I'm getting 10 times what it's worth. And I said, how do you guarantee your success though? He goes, well, I mean, you play until you win. And I don't care if you win all the big items. That's fine with me. That means I can put more big items in there. So he packs the treasure trove. You know, he puts another 50 items in it. So it's completely packed. There's no way you could not win by playing this game. And then he stands there, lifts his hands up, and starts praying over it. And he's praying to Satan. And he prayed, and he names like 5 demons by name. And then I said, so everybody that gets one of these, he goes, oh yeah, at all the places, all of them have a blessing like that. I said, wow, cool, thanks. And so I walked back to the table. I told my ex-wife that. I was like, you just blessed everything in the machine. Gave it a satanic blessing. She goes, what would you call that blessing? I said, I'd call it a curse. He cursed all the items.
So that any child or person that would take one of those things is basically taking like a demon home.
Taking the demon home. You know, when we preach to everyone about blessing yourself before you eat. And, you know, the regular blessing, I prayed it like the way that you're supposed to pray it until 2014. I went to France and I spoke at the Basilica of St. Mary Magdalene. It's in St. Maximum de St. Paul in France. And when I went there, I hung out with a bunch of Irish priests and seminarians. And they taught me, I had to go to France to hang out with Irish priests. They taught me that when you pray the blessing of the food, that you change it. So they made me change it every time I prayed it with them. And now that I'm back to the States, I've been here for 11 years, I still can't go back to the original way I used to pray it. So now it's, you know, in the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost, amen. Bless us, O Lord, in these thy gifts, which we are about to receive from thy amazing bounty through Christ our Lord, amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost. But they just had me add the word amazing to it. And now I can't go back to saying it the other way, because it always seems like it is his amazing bounty. But I know lots of people that don't bless themselves with that prayer. I do it for everything I eat. I have an ice maker. I like Sonic Ice, but it costs $3 a bag to buy Sonic Ice.
Yeah.
You know, and over the course of a year, that's $150. I can buy the ice machine for between $250 and $600. You know, as long as it keeps lasting, I'm not buying those bags. So it makes me the small Sonic Ice. Like, we're currently waiting for a new machine to come in. My old one broke. And so as I got the extended warranty, so I'm getting a new one for free. But we had to buy ice at Walmart, and it's big ice. And I don't like big ice. But because I'm anemic, I'm addicted to ice. And so I have to wait till it gets soft, and then it's easy to break and chew. But so many people don't realize that Satanists will go into a store and they'll bless an ice maker so that every time ice is made, it comes with a curse.
And then they probably do that to multiple types of foods.
Right. Well, at Halloween, witches go through stores and curse all the candy. And that's even if they're Wiccan, they go through and they bless all the candy. But a blessing from a witch is a curse. And it's like they curse food, they curse candy, they curse items that make things. Or you can go up to a fridge and bless every buyer that buys this type fridge so that all their food would come with my blessing. But it's a Satanist doing it, so their blessing is a curse.
Yeah.
And all your food going in there is cursed. So, your two options are every time you go grocery shopping, take them by your priest and ask him to bless them, or to bless yourself every time you eat.
Yeah.
But it's everything you eat, every soda you get, every beer you have, every sandwich you make,
And
everything you do.
So maybe here the point could be that it's part of it is the giving thanks to God, but part of it is like it's literally warfare on everything that we put inside of us. And because there's like this active evil element, we have to bless everything because of that. Not because if there weren't those people out there, it'd maybe be neutral. But there's people actively cursing everything that we ingest.
There's a restaurant in Fort Myers, Florida, that they serve meat, mainly beef, but everything they serve is really, really good. It's really delicious. The problem with the restaurant is that it's owned by Muslims. So you know that they are blessing all their meat before you get it. They do special prayers over it.
Like the halal, supposedly.
Right. So they're blessing your food. You have to bless yourself. You have to do the sign of the cross over yourself and do the blessing, or else you're eating their blessing, which is a curse. When people don't realize that, they'll be, oh, no, they're just blessing it, same as we bless it. It's like, well, you bless it. If you know it came with their blessing, you need to bless it yourself.
Yeah. Gosh,
There's so much we need to know.
Is there
so don't know?
You need to write a book where you put all of this down, because like everything you say makes me think of 10 different questions of things that and I can see how it's like we're totally clueless as to the stuff we're facing. So then it makes you think like what can we do? There's so much we need to know.
Well, ask a question.
Let me think. Oh my gosh. So there's certain things that I know are bad, but sometimes I don't know how bad. Like, for instance, like Greek fraternities, something to stay away from, right?
The reason to stay away from things like that is because there's so much sex involved and so much alcoholism, and then rapes occur. And, in some of those things, it's drinking is the big thing that happens, but it's turning you into an alcoholic, or possibly even dying of alcohol poisoning, and you think you're having a good time. Back when I was in college, one of the hot things to do was to give yourself an alcohol enema. Now, I was never going that route. I'd rather just drink it, and if I can't drink enough to make me drunk, then so be it. Yeah. I am not giving myself an enema to get drunk. But girls that did it ended up going to the emergency room because the alcohol seeps right into your bloodstream from there. And it's not like if you went and did 10 shots, heaven forbid, but you did 10 shots, but you ate a pizza, well, now the alcohol is in your stomach and the pizza's in your stomach. You're kind of fighting it out. You're not quite drunk yet because you've got food in you. Mm-hmm. If you take your alcohol up the butt, you can put anything you want in your stomach. It's not going to do anything to your alcoholism, your drunken state, because your alcohol went straight to your bloodstream doing that.
Yeah.
It's not in your stomach. I had a guy at a conference that said that, didn't you read in the Bible that Jesus exorcised people? Therefore, all of us can do that. I said, you do know that Jesus was God, right? He was like, well, yeah. I said, well, God was able to do that, but there's nothing that says you can't. And, he's like, I can do everything that Jesus did. I said, now that you've opened that can of worms, we have a pond right there on this property. We have a private pond. I will give you the authority to do exorcisms if you go out there and walk across that pond. You can walk on water like Jesus did. I will concede that you can do exorcisms. I'll even call an exorcist right now and tell him that I gave you permission to do them because I saw you walk across the pond. And we'll see what he says.
Yeah.
And so he just sits back down. And then it was about, we had taken a break and we were about to do the Q&A. And everybody's sitting back down. And some guy yells, he goes, hey, everybody, come look and see what that fool's doing right now. So we go to the window. I don't know what fool he's talking about. And we look outside, and this Baptist guy is in the pond, up to his knees in water. His pant legs are rolled up to his thighs, and he's wading through the water, through the pond, not walking on it. And then eventually he comes back inside, sits down, and concedes that he could not walk on the water. I said, well, therefore you can't do exorcisms either. And he just sat there and looked defeated.
In light of that, what are some of your favorite prayers that do have that imprimatur or devotions that you recommend to people, especially in light of kind of some of these different experiences that you've had?
The St. Michael prayer, but not, there is a long version that's an actual exorcism. We don't have the authority to say that. Most dioceses, the bishop will allow you to say the shorter version. But the shorter version is a good version. It still works. There's another version that is, there was an exorcist, Father, I'm going to get the name wrong. It's like Clopidato,
Yeah.
something like that. He was an exorcist, and he trained with Father Gabriel Amorth. And he also knew Monsignor Rossetti, I think, and some other exorcists that are well known. And what is the name? It's the one that Jacinta sent me the St. Michael prayer.
Oh, I don't know. It's not Canido, right?
No.
Because there's one that's like a 4-paragraph one, and then there's the one that sometimes you hear at the end of Mass. It's like just it's like the 10-second one,
There's a version that when you read this version, it's like the difference in the one you're used to seeing, the one you think is a strong prayer, is like a glass of water. And the new one by this other priest is like a steak. Yeah. It's like a juicy, succulent steak versus a glass of water. And it's like, okay, that glass of water is refreshing when you don't have anything. But when you can get the big steak and you're offered the little glass of water, it's like, I'd rather have the steak.
Yeah. If you could send me that one, please.
Honey.
Just, you could text it at some point,
Could you send Jacinta a text message and say that I need that prayer? Because he wants a copy of it. Okay. And I'd also like to have the copy of it. She sent it to me before. I just don't know what I've done with it.
Yeah.
It is such a powerful, this will give you an idea of how powerful it is. We have a friend that's possessed. He's a direct descendant of Aleister Crowley. He's the 4th generation from Aleister Crowley. He has a family curse because he's a Crowley, and he's possessed. He's been possessed since he was 7. He has had a very full decadent life of sin. He's been going through exorcism now for 13 years, and I've known him for 12 of those years. He's worked with a lot of priests that I know. My spiritual director, he said his demons hate and fear, and that they attacked him as hard as they could. And he's retired from being an exorcist. He did it for 15 years. And, you know, he says that the demons did attack him quite strongly. So my friend Jacinta prays with him every night. And it's about 3 hours of prayers. And his demons manifest every night. And she doesn't care. You know, she just, you know, and this is the prayer we're doing now. And she leads Daniel in all the prayers. And they pray, like I said, every night for about 3 hours. But this is in between his exorcisms he gets. So he gets exorcism, then she prays with him for like the next 2 or 3 months, and then he does another exorcism, you know, and then she continues to pray with him. And he goes through a lot of health issues. He's had cancer. He's had cancer multiple times. He's fallen a few times. I think he broke his pelvis. He's had heart surgeries. You know, and they keep telling him, you know, we're going to kill you. You're going to die. You know, and I said, Daniel, you're not going to die until God decides you're going to die. You know, you're here for the long haul. You know, they can't control what happens to you. My friend Tommy, it's my best friend in the whole world. Tommy, he saw I have a St. Benedict medal above my door, but it's like this big around, you know, like a ½ an inch thick. And it's been blessed. We have an exorcism prayer on it. And I told Tommy about it. Tommy came to my house one time, and he's been here now twice. He lives in New York. And he saw my medal, and he was like, that is huge. How'd you get that? And I said, my friend Father Friar went to a Benedictine monastery, and they had a store. And he found that medal, and he thought, Zach would love this. And so he was buying it. And then he said, who can I get to bless this? And they said, well, do you just need it just for yourself or a random person or a special person? He was a special person. He goes, okay. So the guy said, I'll be back. So he disappeared. He came back like 15 minutes later and brought 10 Benedictine monks with him. And they put it like on a stool in the center of them. And they all stood around him with their hands up. And they asked him what kind of priest he was. And he said, I belong to the FSSP. And he goes, you can join us in the prayer if you want. It'll be done in Latin. And so, you know, he's like all about it. So he said he got blessed by 10 monks and himself. And then I showed up. I was going to be speaking at his church in 2015. And he said that he'd been trying to send me a gift, but every time he goes to the post office, he forgets to take it. And then the day he did remember to bring it, he said, you were going to be here in a few days. So I thought I'd just hold on to it. He goes, it's not wrapped. And I said, it doesn't matter to me. Wrapping doesn't matter. And so he just gives it to me. It's wrapped in like just paper, you know, and I undo it all and I pull that out. And I was like, you know what's funny about this? I said, last week I was speaking at the NACOM, the North American Committee on Divine Mercy, at the shrine, or not the shrine, the cathedral in Oakland. And there was a table of these, and I really wanted one, but they were like $60. And I was like, I don't carry a spare $60 on me. And, you know, if you're at a conference and there's a bunch of other people there, a lot of speakers there, a lot of times we like, I'll tell a speaker, hey, I'll trade you all my CDs and a DVD and a book if I can have some of your stuff. So yeah, everybody does that. If you wrote your own book, you know, and you made all your own stuff, then that's an easy trade. That's just a swap. Mm-hmm. Well, what becomes difficult is if you're trying to swap for something that they bought, because now they have to make a certain amount of money for it. Mm-hmm. And they can't take your stuff and swap because they're going to lose money. So they didn't make their medals, they bought them. And I couldn't afford $60, so I didn't get one. And then the same metal I wanted is what he gave me, which was impressive because he doesn't generally have a lot of money and can't spend a lot of money. And he thought enough of me to buy me a $60 medal,
Yeah.
which may or may not have cost that at the shrine or at the the place, but it was still very generous of him to give it to me. And it's like it looks beautiful up on my door,
Wow.
above my door.
And,
Like
and
I
man,
said,
I can't imagine the blessing that's on it. That must be amazing.
yeah, I mean, it had 10 Benedictines and an FSSP priest. And then my house has been blessed multiple times.
Yeah. I actually have to I have to let you go because I have an appointment right now that I don't normally on Saturdays, but I didn't know how long we were going to talk, but man, I could talk for hours. But,
So that Tommy sent our friend that Benedictine medal. He bought him one.
Yeah.
And had it blessed by an exorcist named Father Zeta. And then we sent it to Dan. And Dan said he didn't know what was in the package, but he knew his demons went crazy. Like they were going nuts all over the house, knocking stuff over and banging stuff and just being all around angrier than normal. And he got the package the day before, but he didn't know what was in it till the next day. He opened it up and slid the metal out and went, oh, that explains a lot. That's why they're going crazy.
Wow. Well, Zachary, man.
If somebody listens to this and they think, I think I've got stuff like that in my house. I've got something that's there that shouldn't be there. Make sure you post my phone number, email address, website address, all of that stuff on your thing, because I want people to be able to reach me. And I want to be able to tell you, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to get. This is what will help you.
Thank you so much. I'm like, I had high expectations and you blew them like to smithereens. I'm like, like I'm gonna sit here all day and just sort of like, it's like I have like 50 pounds of information that I have to just chew on and marinate in. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. And if at the end of this marination, if you decide, oh my God, I've got another 50 questions, well, let's just set up another one of these. We'll do it again.
That would be amazing. Like family curses, man. There's so much. It's like it's a big world. So I think we might need to. Okay.
In a way it's a big world. In a way it's just a crazy world. It's a small world that's gone crazy.
Yeah.
To let your listeners know one last thing, curses with demons are 4 generations. When they put a curse on you, it's for 4 generations. And if you're wondering what that looks like, well, like every 3rd daughter gets an abortion. Every 4th son commits suicide. Those are just examples, but look to your generations of families and see if there's a reoccurring theme happening in all of them.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Zachary.
Sure.
We're going to talk again for sure.
Okay. I had a great time.
Have a beautiful day, please. I'm going to
You as well.
Say all the beautiful prayers I can for you, okay?
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. God bless you.